All right. Well, welcome everybody. Kyle and Curtis here for our Tuesday Mastermind call, all about EXP agent attraction. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, and it's the week before shareholders. So, of course, I want to kick off and kind of talk about that, and of course, then get into some other news and some other stuff we're going to be announcing. But of course, this is the big push, guys. I've been messaging not only my team, my organization, the agents that I have with me, but all the agents that I know that I think might have a chance to go to shareholders, because we've heard stories before, and there's actually been stories that I personally had where literally up till days before, you might have people that aren't committed that will come to shareholders. So it is not too late. There are still rooms and ways that people can get to shareholders. There's definitely still tickets. So if you're on the fence yourself, definitely just come. I promise it'll be well worth it. Don't hesitate. It will be life-changing for you. And if you've got people, so if you're already committed and you've got people that are on the fence, just tell them how important it is. Whether they're with EXP, whether they're not with EXP, just say you've got to be there. But I know that it's so important that some agents will pay for other agents, hotel rooms, or one night at a hotel or something like that, just to kind of give them that extra push to get there. And I'll be honest with you guys, if it's $200 or $300 or something that gets them over the edge because you're going to buy a one-way plane ticket and they buy the way back or something, it's worth it for your organization. I mean, that money is minuscule in the comparison to what that agent, if you do get them to join EXP, is worth. So pull out all the stops, try and get people to come, whether they're in your organization or whether you're trying to get them to join EXP. It will be absolutely worth it for them to be there. And then, of course, when you're there, plug in, guys. I mean, the cool thing I'll say about shareholders, the events are great. EXP puts on a good presentation, and especially for shareholders, it's a lot about where the company is heading and kind of like the direction. I know they're going to be announcing, I think it's 2 new countries that EXP is going to be joining. So, of course, that's going to be interesting. Plus, I know that they've got a lot of other announcements that they're going to be talking about. But more than that, really what you got to do when you're at these events is you got to plug in, you got to meet people. And if you do bring other agents, whether they're with your organization or not, you got to plug them in too to other people. So that's the most important thing about these events, is just getting plugged into the right groups and plugging your people into those groups, because that's really when the duplication can start to happen and the scaling can start to happen without your doing, is when you can make those connections and then people can run with it and it's not all on your shoulders anymore. So leverage other people, just like you leverage, these calls and our Tuesday executive overview calls. You got to leverage. That's the whole name of this game for building this EXP business. So events are a great way to do that. It's a great way to connect people and really start to grow. So anyways, Curtis, I'll let you maybe make some announcements or talk about what's on your mind, and then we'll get kicked off.
Sounds good, man. We can't, I don't think we can emphasize enough, again, just the power of the event. And so I'll give you another option here. So even if you're not going, right, even if for any reason you're not going, find somebody that you're connected to on this team that is going, and get in their text chats like today and ask them to update you and send you things and see what's going on, because you still want to capitalize on that positive momentum. So what's funny is at almost every corporate event, I've seen the stock tick up. The buzz around EXP ticks up, because almost everybody, 6 degrees of separation, somewhere across the country, if you're not at EXP, you're connected to somebody at EXP on social. So you're going to start seeing EXP stuff flooding social media. So even if you're not there, find the people who are there on your social and leverage them being there, right? Plug into Kyle, connect up to Rebecca, follow Griff, whatever it is you got to do, and just leverage that power and that opportunity to create some buzz and some momentum around your business and your audience and the folks you're trying to attract and that you're connected to. So just kind of another perspective on the power of that event, again, even if you're not there. So I'd say let's just kick off the call and get going, see what people are thinking, see what people are working on, get a little bit of juice going, Kyle. So I always like to kick off by reminding everybody, again, if you've never been on this call, this is a version of a mastermind format, right? We want your participation. So we want you guys to ask questions, talk about your challenges, opportunities, share what's going on in your agent attraction business. The goal of this call is to help you guys attract your next agent to EXP. So if you've got an agent that you're in the process of working with and you're stuck somewhere in the process, let us help you. Let us mastermind that. If you're trying to add your first agent or your 15th agent. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you're working on, let's go through that. Let's talk about that. And let's kind of help you guys and help each other mastermind that. The way I like to kick off every single call, guys, I've got this at like the top of my notes. I just think this reminder is so important for all of us to hear, is our saying that agent attraction is a process and not an event, right? We always give credit, I think, to Jonathan Dupree for sharing that statement and coining it like within our team. But now it should be like everybody's mantra. Like, you just should remember this is a process, not an event, right? You don't just go recruit someone as if you show up to, watch a movie. You build a relationship. It's absolutely a process. The other thing I like to remind, everybody, because you probably just got done selling real estate all weekend, hopefully, not just drinking beers and hanging out at the lake. In real estate, listings are like deposits in the bank, right? Everybody knows if you get a listing, like that's almost as good as a commission as long as you can sell it. Well, in agent attraction, the connections and the relationships are deposits in the bank, right? Every time you connect to a new agent on social media, every time you start to build a new relationship with an agent on the other side of a deal, those are just like, listings that haven't gone under contract yet. Just a reminder there. And then another one, this one's really important too, just from a thought process perspective, right? The goal of every interaction is not to get an agent to like join right now. The goal is to move them to the next step. What's the next step? So back to like this event, for example, these events right now, like EXP shareholders can help you move an agent to the next step. Maybe that next step is just getting them excited to take a phone call. Maybe that next step is getting them to a webinar, getting them to watch a presentation. Like, your goal at every interaction, at every turn, our goal should be to get them to take the next step. So just like to kick off the call with that, guys. Kyle, I did have one thing I wanted to share, man, as we get the chat going, guys. So again, I'm going to ask you guys to start thinking about and putting in the chat, what do you want to talk about today? What's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest hurdle? What's your biggest opportunity with agent attraction? We do want some interaction. I've got a couple of notes here about what we wanted to cover last week that we didn't get to. But I want to start with this because I see a couple of folks on the call that I think this will resonate with, and it resonated with me in a big way. So Kyle and I are having lunch last Tuesday, I think, after this call. We were having lunch, and Kyle was doing more of a debrief from the Brent Gove Leadership Summit that he had gone to, that previous weekend. And one of the things that we started talking about, it was kind of funny. We both sort of came at it from like a different perspective, but we started talking about the opportunity to sort of start over with building our revenue share organization like that day. Like, Kyle's got 100 and whatever people it is, and I've got 70 people, and like, that's great. But that day we were both at this point where we were ready to start over, like start attracting the next agent from day one, like again, almost like rebuild and, do more for our team, but start adding more people to our team and doing more for them. And so I just wanted to like share with you guys that that's okay. And that if you're thinking that, and, you're at a point right now where you feel, man, I've been here so long and I haven't attracted enough, or I just got here and I really need to get started, or I've been here for a long time and I'm doing good. Like, it doesn't matter what point you're at, you could still start over today and just be like, all right, I'm restarting. I'm going to redo my list. I'm going to get my targets right. I'm going to go out and build relationships and make connections. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. And it will take away, I think, some of the, at least for me, it'll take away some of the feelings of not doing enough, right? Like the feelings of like, oh man, I could have been doing more this last year, or I could have, done more this last month, or I could have done more for my team. Just wanted to say it's okay if you feel that way, but you should just like put it away, put it to bed, and start over today. I just wanted to encourage you guys to do that because that was like a big thing Kyle and I did last week, and I felt great since then, man. It's been an awesome week. We just had a lot of different conversations, different perspective. The other thing that I remembered, at least I reminded myself of, right? All of our attraction styles are different. We're all going to talk to people differently. We're all going to have, like our most authentic self is different from every other person on this call, right? So a lot of times when we talk about tactics and strategies, those are really, really helpful, as Jay talked about, for being consistent. Those are really helpful for being efficient. Those are really helpful for producing like maximum results, right? But if you're at the point like today where I just talked about, where you're starting over and you're just trying to produce any results, you're just trying to get the next agent, like, don't worry if you spend 2 or 3 hours like helping one agent, and not even talking about EXP. Like, don't scrutinize or judge your process because you're not Tom Trong, or because you're not, Scott Lewis or Rob Flick or Brent Gove. Like last week, so Kyle, after we reset on Tuesday, I'll be honest, like I've been pretty strategic with my process for a long time now, right? I want to get them to watch the presentation. I want to keep my conversations short, 10 or 15 minutes for the first time. I want to get them to a webinar or to a meeting or whatever. That's my general thinking. Well, I went into a call last week and on a Zoom, and I talked to a lady for an hour for the first time. She's never watched the presentation. She's never like really seen anything about EXP. She was just excited to talk. You know what we talked about? Business, travel, kids, you know, family, entrepreneurship, being a mom and getting back into the business. Like we talked about a bunch of different stuff. And at the end, when I talked about what was coming up in my life and how EXP had given me that opportunity, she was intrigued. You know what I mean? And then she's watching the webinar tonight. So like, just a reminder, again, there's no one way or only way to do this. Like you just gotta, if you're all in, like Kyle said last week, you just gotta be all in and just don't hold back. Don't think that, you know, you have to cut conversations off or keep them short and sweet or get them the presentation first time you talk to them. Just wanted to share that because that's a reminder for me too, is like, you just got to be yourself and just pour in and give whatever it is you've got, you know, to these people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I think, you know, along that line, one of the things that I've been kind of focused on this week was I heard something, and I forget it was even where, but it wasn't at the Brent Gove thing, but it was talking about like ratios and averages. And Jay, and your post here kind of made me think of this when you talked about consistency being your biggest challenge. And I think, you know, we all struggle with that, you know, like, you know, in some form or another. I mean, unless we're just, you know, a machine, like, I mean, we all struggle with consistency, especially most of us, because it's almost like this is our second job, right? Like attracting, like, you know, we all want it to be our primary for sure. But, you know, in the beginning, it doesn't make enough money for us, you know, to get rid of our primary job, which is selling real estate for most of us. And so like, it's kind of that secondary thing. So I think it definitely it has the tendency to give us that struggle that with consistency, because, you know, even just if you're a real estate agent, like it's hard to be consistent with that, right, as your primary business. So let alone your secondary business being, you know, consistent with this. I think that's what we all kind of struggle with. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, we have to, I would say this, you don't have to necessarily be consistent day to day or week to week. I mean, if you can, I mean, that's ideal, right? Like it's perfect, but you can't get down on yourself if you're not, but you do have to realize that this is a numbers game, right? Right. And so the way that I kind of look at it, especially if you're like a new agent, you know, or a new EXP agent, and you're wondering, oh man, how do I have success with, you know, agent attraction? Kind of like what Curtis said, like I can't compete with a Tom Trong, or I can't compete with a, you know, so-and-so, you know, insert whoever's name that you look up to at EXP there. And I would actually challenge that. And I would say that you could, what it all is. And I've started to realize that is that this is definitely an efforts game, meaning like, you know, it's all a ratio. So when you're a new agent, it might be that if you talk to 10 people, you could get one, right? Like that's kind of, I would say, you know, a good ratio. Maybe it's 20 to 1. I don't know what that number is for you, but let's just say it's 10 to 1 when you get started. And then as you get better and you look at like a Tom Trong or Curtis Dixon, the master himself, you know, you're at like 3 out of 10, right? You're just like, you know, batting 300%, which, you know, people get paid millions of dollars in baseball to bat 300%. So, you know, that just goes to show that the cool thing though about that is if say you're a new agent and you're 1 out of 10, you can beat Curtis, who's 3 out of 10, or Tom Trong, who's 3 out of 10, or Jonathan Dupree, you know, and how you say, well, how would I do that? Well, look at this. If you're 1 out of 10 and you contacted, you know, 40 people, that's 4 people. If Curtis only contacts 10, you're going to get more than he is, right? It's just an efforts thing. And so, and then eventually what ends up happening is as you start to do more and more, you get better. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. Like Curtis said, you know, there's all sorts of different ways that each person, you're going to connect with them differently. And as you start to do this more and more, you start to like figure out those different ways that you need to connect with people. And I would say that that's what's going to help get your batting average to increase, so to speak. And of course, you know, going to these calls, these Tuesday calls, attending, you know, more and more things will help you kind of just understand the way to talk to people a little bit better. Hearing something like I'll just hear one thing and then I try that and it might work or it doesn't work, but it's all these little things added up. So it's all the effort of, you know, researching, finding it out, and then, you know, trying it out on a lot of people. And if you can do 100 people one week, Jay, and then the next week you can only do 20, but then you get back to it It's just that ongoing effort, right? Like, I mean, I think that's the thing. And I even struggle with consistency. If I could do 100, connections a week, then I would be probably way better off than what I am right now. But I think we all struggle with that. So don't get too down on yourself about it, but just realize that you got to get back on the horse and just keep going, man. You got to do it whenever you do have the energy to do it, you just got to do it in a massive way, because it doesn't, honestly, like what I do look at, I'm like, man, it doesn't take me a whole long time to do a lot of prospecting, but it's like, I don't block it out. If I blocked out seriously 3 hours a week, if I just blocked that out, I would be so much better off, but I don't even do that. It's so sporadic, it's hit and miss. So it doesn't take a ton of effort, but it does take, focused effort on the right thing. So I don't know, Curtis, would you agree with that?
Yeah, man, you hit a couple of things for me, and I'd love to hear other people's perspective too, just because there's a lot of different people on this call that think different ways, right? So you were talking about ratios and averages and how those can be, really impacted and maximized by effort. And for some reason, what you said, just like it made me picture something visually, right? So when you don't go to the gym at all, like that's zero effort, right? You're just zero. You put in zero effort. You didn't leave your house. You didn't go to the gym. That loses all day, every day, right? Period. However, I was thinking about the gym. So when you do go, there's like a couple of different ways you could do it when you get there, right? So one way that I think a lot of us can relate to is sort of that, all right, I'm here at the gym. I'm just going to get on the cardio machine for 30 minutes, right? I'm just going to ride the bike for 30 minutes, or I'm going to do the Stairmaster for 30 minutes, which is actually super hard, or I'm going to do the elliptical for 30 minutes, or I'm going to like walk or jog on the treadmill for 30 minutes, right? Well, the bottom line is, honestly, if you did that every day, that's good. That's good for you. Like, you'll be pretty healthy cardiovascularly. You'll probably lose a little bit of weight. Like, that's good, consistent effort. Even if you like did that a few times a week, that's still good, consistent effort, right? The other way is like you get to the gym, and I know we've all done this too. You go super hard, like high intensity. Like you get in there and you start like squatting and doing like power clings, or you get on the treadmill and you like put it up to 10 and you start running for 6 minutes till you can't breathe. Or like, you get on the Stairmaster, but you go hard for 10 minutes. Like you go high intensity, right? Well, if you did that every day, you'd be freaking one of those like super fitness people, right? You'd be the CrossFit person, or you'd be like competitive in fitness, right? If you just did that high intensity training, that's super duper good. But if you only did that like once a week, it's probably still getting you like minimal results, but not much. You know what I mean? And so I just was picturing, like, for different people on this call, bottom line for consistency is you at least have to be one of those two people. You got to, like Kyle was talking about, like if he goes hard for 3 hours in a week, you'll have a great week. You'll get personals, your team will grow and go, like you'll spin up stuff, but if you did that only for like 30 minutes a week, you probably wouldn't have a lot of results, So like the other thing I think about is the effort, the intensity, right? It matters. You got to do it. But the other piece is time. Like time is that really important element. Because if you get on the treadmill and you just go slow for like 4 minutes, that doesn't help you, like probably at all. It's probably not even worth the drive to the gym. But if you get on the treadmill and you go slow for like 3 hours, I guarantee you broke down your muscles and you like fatigued yourself, and your body's going to replenish and grow tomorrow. So I think time is that really, really important thing. And one of the things we did last week, and I challenge you guys to all do this if you haven't done it in a while, is Kyle and I and a couple other folks on the team, we recommitted to just doing an hour a day. And I've only missed 2 days in those 5 days or 7 days, whatever. So that means I've done 5 hours. But that was honestly probably more than I did the previous week, like consistently. So I think time is that important combo factor with the effort, is like pick a time, an amount of time, and do it.
And Curtis, real quick, can I just say something too? And I'll use your analogy about the gym. So one of the other things that I'll tell you that I think is important too, and I don't know, some people who do this or not, but if you're like a major, workout person, you're probably like prepping, like even before you go to the gym, you're probably like taking some supplements, or you're taking some energy stuff, or you're eating right? Like you research like what the best workout routine is going to be. Like you have it prepared before you get to the gym, right? Like I think that, for me personally, I think that's why I've been effective, in the short amount of time that I can do it, because I'm still actively selling, guys. Like I'll sell probably 50 homes this year. So like I'm very much selling, and that takes up a lot of my time. I wish that I could attract more, like dedicated and do that kind of thing. But honestly, it hasn't. And but when I do, I will say that I'm prepared. Like if I'm spending 2 or 3 hours to do something, I'm usually going in it with a purpose. Like I've got, focus of like what I'm going to do that during those 2 hours. Like I've got a script, and like maybe I'm just going to go nail, 100 people with this same script, and I know what I'm inviting them to or what I'm offering to that person. Like I'm strategic about it. Like, today's Tuesday. Today will be a prospecting day for me because we've got the Tuesday executive overview tonight. So like I'm going to hit that hard. I've got a purpose. I'm going to go in there. If you just go in randomly, if you got no plan for like what you're going to do, you could also be that person that's just walking on the treadmill, right, for 30 minutes and you're out of the gym and you're like not getting any results, right? So it's like you got to go in, and if you really want to get, the maximum efforts, figure out like what your plan is. And again, it doesn't take a lot of time each week, like, because I'm definitely not spending as much time as I should. But when I do spend the time, like I kind of have my idea in my mind of what I'm going to be doing and focused on. So I would say that that's the other part about that, Curtis.
Dude, yeah, I love it. And so one more thing, you're just like, anybody want to chime in? Anybody want to share stuff about consistency or this gym analogy? But I was also thinking about this, right? So like today, for example, a lot of you guys, I see you sitting at your office or at your home, just like us, right? So this means you sort of time blocked and prioritized this moment. How easy would it be? Good morning, my man. Oh, my guy was throwing up all night. I just wanted to check on him. How easy would it be to just throw another hour on your calendar right after this and just start prospecting? Like it'd be super easy every week. And I see people that have been on here now for like 4 or 5 weeks. So just an easy idea or example, even 30 minutes, if you just tack that on to the end of this, and then you started your day every Tuesday at 10:45 with work, like that would be super effective. So just ideas, I mean, ways you could do it. I think you could leverage this Tuesday, and you could do exactly what Kyle said. Like you could be using your Tuesday to invite to the webinar. And that could kind of be like your litmus test or your gauge. Like and Tom mentioned this in the chat. I wanted to hit this real quick on Tom's. So to this point, Tom was talking about in the chat, Tom Trong, he said, I start over every day with agent attraction. And the great thing is when I'm following up with agents that I've already talked to, I'm that much further ahead with the relationship than before. So this morning for an hour before this call, he followed up with 23 agents that he first showed this to 13 months ago. So like, number one, like Kyle said, Tom's very prepared, right? He's got a great list. It's well organized. It's manicured. It's curated. It's labeled. He knows who he's talking to. He knows when he talked to them 13 months ago. Like that's good stuff. But at the same time, like he's just taking advantage of starting over today and using these relationships to prospect, and he knows exactly what he wants to talk to them about. So if you were to start your prospecting calls every Tuesday after this call, for example, you could be calling people and you'd know, is this relationship far enough along that I should invite them to tonight's webinar? Or do I need to take this next call and take advantage of the opportunity to build trust and rapport and develop my relationship with a plan of next Tuesday to invite them to the webinar? So just a real simple tactical thing you could insert into your week. I think it'd be helpful.
Hey, Curtis, can I share something? So I've been working on this. It's not done yet, but basically, so it's just similar to like what we'd always done with our greatness trackers, right? But I converted it into a wealth tracker. And so something that, I think for consistency, Jay, that you might want to implement, and I know most real estate agents, the hardest thing about these things is we're not super organized, or we don't like to like stick to
using
a plan
them
or whatever. Using them. Yeah. So, I mean, like, but, there's definitely agents that do, there's a couple agents in my mind that, that come to my mind that actually do these week in and week out. And you know who they are too, Curtis. And so it's like, maybe you're that agent that can do these and stay true to it. Now, these numbers you can modify and, change to meet whatever it is that you think that you can do on a week-to-week basis. But I think having some idea of what's important in this business that you're going to focus on week in and week out would be important for everybody to like realize. And so literally we just took this from, our sales business, which, we had a lot of success. So anytime we get to this greatness tracker, do we not have like a spike in business, Curtis, when we can actually stick to this thing?
Absolutely, man.
And it's funny because we don't always stick to it because, I don't know, we're just real estate agents and we don't always stick to things. But when we do, naturally our business goes up. And so what happens is I was like, man, I'm going to try this out with this wealth tracker, and I'm going to start, doing the same things, but on agent attraction and seeing what kind of results that I get. And Curtis, you actually spurred it when we were talking about the accountability. And I was like, maybe we need to implement something like this into like our accountability with each other each week. But basically what it is is, boils down to face-to-faces, right? Which, in my opinion, especially in this business, because we're not local like I was in my real estate sales business, I think that could include Zoom, like when we're on Zooms. But it also could be if you have a local agent and you're talking with them and you go face-to-face with them, maybe you're meeting agents at a networking event. Anytime that you're seeing somebody and building a relationship with somebody, and again, that doesn't just have to be real estate agents. It could be referral partners. Like I just got 2 referrals this week. One from the person that I use for my title, doing all my title business, and then one from one of my lender partners. And so, they gave me 2 real estate agents that I've set up meetings with for this week with agents here locally. But I mean, so face-to-face is anybody that, you think might be able to help your agent attraction business. Breaking bread is when you actually like sit down for coffee. So this would be like the local one, coffee, lunch, dinner, whatever it might be, per week. Great phone calls with leads, referral partners, 3-way phone calls, past transactions, current transactions, like agents on those deals. So anything that would be considered a great phone call. And what I kind of look at, like on this, Curtis, the 60, I don't remember if we used to say that it used to have to be like you actually spoke to them to get counted for the 60, but in my mind, I think you make 60 phone calls. That's probably 20 that you connect with each week. And if people are calling and connecting with 20 people each week, I think that'd be solid. So I mean, I think that's a solid number. And what I've been doing now, I did this last week and then now started this week, was I'll write down every number or every phone, every name of the people that I call. And if I talk to them, I just put an X here. I don't like cross out their name where I can't see it, but I put a little X to know that I spoke to the person. That way it's like if I've got a name here and it doesn't have an X, that means that I didn't get to talk to them. So that way I can still look back at my earlier lists and make the same call next week or something like that to try and get in touch with the person. So that's kind of how I've been handling my great phone calls. Events attended. So, I mean, I think this is, of course, we all know that it's important to go to events. This could be, your weekly lunch and learns. This could be, the Tuesday executives. This could be, going to an actual like networking event or realtor event in your area where you can meet some people. I think it's important to go to 2 of those per week. I've got in here 21 hours prospected. That's a lot of hours prospecting. But I mean, if you see down here how many applications, you'll know why. But I mean, this would be like a serious amount of business that you're going to be doing. You can, of course, modify that to fit your schedule, but 21 hours prospected. And what that means is just, you're making phone calls, you're setting up face-to-faces, 21 hours that you're spending to grow your agent attraction business. Handwritten thank you cards. I think that's super important. I think that goes by the wayside, especially in real estate to real estate. We might think of that in our buyer seller business, but it's super important to do handwritten thank you cards. I'll share something that I actually got a really positive response from, and I actually got one agent to join from it. Got some of them back here. So I haven't done this in forever, and I don't know why. It's one of those same things. Like when things work, we stop doing it, and it's probably the same thing for this. But literally, these books here, Making My First 10 Million Bucks, right? Brian Carruthers wrote it. They're like, I think you can get them for like $1 a piece, right? And they fit inside of an envelope, and you can actually mail them with a stamp. And so you could mail that if you had a great meeting with an agent or something like that, and just put a little thank you card in there. Hey, thanks for meeting. Just wanted to share this with you. It's a good book. It actually references real estate in it. It talks a lot about residual income and how important that is. And so, it's not like a slap in the face, like you need to join EXP. It's just talking about residual income and how, people can build businesses based on it. So I think it's a cool thing to send out to people after you meet with them. So it's like my goal would be to, send out 10 thank you cards per week, to people. And I mean, just so that way they're getting something from you, a gift. I think that's very important that, not anybody probably does in this business. We think of it for clients all the time, but we probably don't do it so much for real estate agents. And then of course we want to be adding in 10 new leads to our database. And these are leads that you can be getting off of social media. These are leads you can be getting locally at events or whatever, but you want to add 10 new names into your database each and every week. And so like I've already got 4 people on my list for this week. So, that I put in yesterday that I was doing. I did a half an hour of prospecting yesterday. So I put it down as 30 minutes. So it's like, even if anything that you do, you want to start adding it up into here. And then of course, how many applications can you get into EXP? I've got a goal of 3 a week of applications. That's a big goal. That would be 12 a month. And so we'll see, if I can get 12 in a month, I figure out of that, probably 8 will stick. And so, my goal is to be getting between 5 and 8 personals per month is where I want to be at. I'm definitely not there right now. I'm averaging 3 to 5, but I know that I can, do better if I can focus and get these results from here. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I actually shared kind of a similar thing yesterday for a sales tracker, because again, it just depends, like what you want to do. Like I put these both on here. Like here's my wealth tracker. I like how I named them. This is the wealth tracker. This is just the sales tracker, right? What do we all want? We want the wealth.
Wealth, baby.
So, but this is the same thing, right? But it tells you what you need to do to have success in sales, right? It's basically the same thing. This is what I did all the time in sales, and I had great success in it. Why would I do anything different for wealth? It's like, I've gotten very distracted sometimes for agent attraction, where I think, oh man, I got to do social media. I got to grow my followers on Instagram. And then I go and I spend like 4 months growing my followers on Instagram. And it probably took me, I don't know, hundreds of hours. And it's like, how many people have I gotten from Instagram? 0, right? Or like maybe like 1. It's like not very much compared to like where I mostly get people from, which is, connecting with them. And you can use Instagram to connect. I'm not saying not to do that, but just like growing followers or doing these like tasks that really don't connect well to something, I don't know. I'm starting to rethink that. And I'm like, man, when I have success, it's when I'm doing things like this. And so getting back to something like this, I feel is going to be super important. So anyways, just share that with you guys. If you guys have any thoughts about it, or if anybody's doing anything like that, I'd be happy to open the mic up and hear from you guys. Curtis, I'm happy to hear what your thoughts are on it.
Everybody just wants the wealth tracker. Can you put in a Google link PDF right now and share it?
Yeah, here, let me share that with you guys. Let's see.
Who's done something like that before? Anybody on this call who's used a tracker, a daily tracker or weekly tracker? And what's your pros and cons, hang-ups, thoughts? It's like Tuesday morning. Everybody's like, what happened yesterday? I'm just ready.
Curtis, I might be able to add a little bit. So I am not as detailed oriented as you guys, but I just go out and I just pound the paper and I just do the work, right? So really, I got the program Reach from Pat Hayes and I still use that today. That's the only thing that that's not true. I do Reach, and then of course the wealth chart that we all should be doing, right? But in addition to the wealth chart, I think I've sort of shared this with you before. I carry around my trusted black book. I call it my Bible. There's my wealth chart, right? Of everyone who says they're going to be coming on and so on and so forth. But then I also have a wealth chart, not just for my level 1s, but my level 2s and my level 3s, just to see who are the powerhouses on my 2nd and my 3rd level, see who's duplicating. What I started doing recently is I started tracking people on my team to see how much growth they are doing month over month. And so anyone who's with 4 or more personals, I put on this chart. And this month I added 3 people on my team who hit the 4 mark. So I'm going to work with them to try to get to the 5, the 10, the 15. The reds are the one that have added, 2 or more on a monthly basis. So I focus in on those builders, right? So that's how I track it. But everything is done with my trusted black book that I carry around, in addition to Reach, because sometimes Reach is hard to figure out, when I touch base with them. But, it goes on and on and on and on with people that I talk to. The yellow is the one that says, yeah. Sorry, I had an incoming call. I got to turn that do not disturb. But the yellows are the ones that says, yeah, when the time is right, I'm going to make the switch. The ones in the box are the one that says that actually joined. So really, that's all my tracker, guys. It goes on and on and on and on. That's it.
I love it. He's got follow-up boss in his black book, Curtis. That's that's our CRM that Curtis and I use. And you've got it all stored in a black folder. That's crazy. That's awesome. I love it. I love to see it.
And it's duplicated in Reach, just so you know.
Yep.
But this is so fast for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I got a couple things I just got to pull out of this, right? So it's a Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Everybody on this call is busy. But if you know Tom Trong, he's busy times 10, right? He's 10x busy. And he's here on a Tuesday morning listening to these nuggets, right? Because he knows if he can get one thing that helps him grow his business or add a monster player, then this time invested was worth it. So I just want to say thank you, commend all of you guys, but just so you recognize how important it is, right? Tom's at 200 plus people or 2 something, and he just
280, 285,
almost 300. He's just trying to grab something. So again, just remember what you're doing on this call, why you're here, why you're showing up, is to grab like one thing. The other thing that I took from Tom, and I think this might help you, Jay, it's helped me as far as how to think about it. Tom knows like inside and out the details of his important folks, like important people in his organization. And so if you think about it, like the way to get duplication on your team, there's a couple of ways, right? Like the walk on the treadmill for 30-minute way is just connect with them, respond, comment, reply, text. That's like the basic, just communicate with them. But the real way, like the high intensity, get massive results way, is when you find any one person who's interested in growing and you really believe they are, they are, you just have to go to war with them. You just have to like dive in and stay in so much in touch and in tune and help them actually get their next person. Like just dive in and go. And that's the one way I've seen duplication personally is like, and there's a couple of them on this call, like they are my real partners. Like we use the word partner to say anybody we're in business with at EXP, that's cool. But picture a partner like your husband, your wife, your actual business partner, your teammate on a sports team. Like those are your real partners, right? And when you have one of those or you identify somebody that could become one, the way you actually get duplication the fastest is by just getting into a deep relationship with them, focused around helping them grow personally, professionally, and revenue share. And like that's what's in Tom's book. All these highlights and these circles and these red marks, those are the VIPs in his organization. And that's why he's experiencing such duplication. It's not because he's got 280 people and all of them are bringing people to Lunch and Learns webinars. There's not. It's because he's got 280 and probably 3% of those are ready to run. So he grabs them by the hand and the arm and just runs with them. And that's just something I took away from Tom and, to Jay's point, and it's something I've seen personally. I know that it works. So even if you only have like one agent, right? If they've expressed any interest in building and growing, like spend as much time with them as you can every single week in helping them build and grow together, create a competition, start challenging each other, talk daily, text daily, find out what they're doing. Carmen Tedder said on here, role play, like who's role play with them. Talk through every call. Like, hey, Tom, I just called this guy. I totally blew it, but I said this. And they'll be like, oh, man, you could have said this. Like, oh, that's awesome. Let's do it. I'm going to make that call. Thank you. I'm going to call him back. And, you just like fire each other up and motivate each other. So I love that.
I think better than role play if you guys, because role play takes time, right? There's nothing better than just getting down and doing the business. Yeah. And so, locally, I would invite people, some of the go-getters to my house, or if I'm in their neck of the woods, I go to their house with quiet room, and boom, he's in one room, she's in another room, I'm in another room, and we're dialing for dollars. And every 15 minutes we get back together and we sort of pump each other up, right? Just shrug off the nose, yep, and keep going for the yes. But then we also do it on a Zoom call. I would get on a Zoom call like this with our team, with our go-getters. And then, of course, we all hit mute, but then we start dialing and we hold each other accountable and just dial for a whole hour. Just do it.
Yep. Damn. How many of these things did we talk about last week, Kyle? Like,
all in checklist.
And man, and if y'all want in on this stuff, let's go. Let's do it. Whoever really wants to do this stuff, pull it together. We will jump in and we will come make calls with you too. Like we would love to do this stuff. We're dying for this level of participation and organization, around this. So Tom, thank you for that. That's good stuff. There's one more thing I wanted to take away. And, I'm so glad Tom is on this call today because I'm like a little bit obsessed with Tom's content the last couple of weeks. There's a Tom Trong video on Facebook from when he hosted the Gladiator call last week. I know it's probably in the Gladiator group, right? So it's probably not for everybody. So you need to get to 5, or you need to cheat and call your friend that has 5, and you need to go watch this video with them because like it's the starter pack for how to grow your EXP revenue share. Like it's an hour-long video, and it is just the best of the best stuff to get you started day 1, day 2. I think he called it his 90-day action plan, right? Day 90. So if you want to see how Tom went from 0 to 280 in 15, 16, 17 months, wherever he's at, like it's all sitting in Facebook, guys. It's just there. You just have to know about it and go find it. So wanted to highlight that. And one of the secrets he gives away in there, back to Kyle's wealth tracker, guys, if you look back at that wealth tracker and you take nothing else away, you can't make 60 calls, you don't do it, you're inconsistent or whatever, it's the same as real estate. You got to go get in front of people. You have to go sit down with them. That is like the number one thing Tom said to me that's resonating. And it's why I spent an hour with that lady on Zoom last week, is because that was the best simulation I could get of being belly to belly with her and face to face. But it's like, you absolutely have to, not just to talk about EXP, not to give them a formal presentation necessarily, just to go build the relationship and make the connection, to get to understand if they're open-minded, to get them to a point where you can invite them to something, right? Like that was what he said was the number one secret. Kyle gave a quote that he stole from the Gove Summit, right? It was recruit to invite, don't invite to recruit, right? That was the quote. Correct. So basically, like what Brent Gove was saying is, don't just think, even though we all say you just got to be a professional inviter or whatever, don't just think that when you invite someone to a webinar, that's how you recruit them. That's not, right? It's not. But if you recruit someone in the format of, I went and sat with them for 2 hours, then I gave them a private presentation, then I invested in them, then we talked about list day one, then we went through a rev share calculator and a tracker, then we went deep on their personal life, their 10-year goal. We did all this stuff, right? You actually really, truly recruited somebody. Now you can invite and leverage that relationship and get 3 or 4 of their people to come see the next presentation. That's way more powerful strategically, and it's a huge paradigm shift, like for me anyways, right? I've been thinking like 18 months, 20 months, I've just been like, I need to get into the webinar, just need to get into a lunch and learn, And if you think about it the other way and you model people who are uber successful's behavior, that's a different way of thinking. I need to get them onboarded personally so we can then invite their folks to the webinar. That's pretty powerful. So I just think that goes in the same vein.
Cool. Well, hey, to shift gears here a little bit, because we got about 15 minutes, I wanted to talk about it because I know that this has been on some people's minds. I've talked to multiple agents that have kind of been saying the same thing. And I just thought that I actually heard like the perfect thing the other day from Jim Rohn. So I don't know who's a Jim Rohn fan. Raise your hand if you like Jim Rohn, if you've heard of Jim Rohn. All right. So he's got a thing. I don't even know. I have to see if I can find where it was to share it with everybody. But I know right now with where we've been with EXP, if you've got any size of an organization, 15, 20 or more people or so, total, you've probably seen it being fluctuating quite a bit over these last few months as far as people dropping off and it kind of getting discouraging because you're like getting some traction and then boom, it's like 13 people drop off your organization. It's like, holy crap. And so I was talking to a few agents about it, and, it was kind of like, I was, of course, trying to stay positive and say like, hey, here's what it is. We're getting stronger organizations because of this, right? Like the people that are here, even though you might have the same as what you had to begin the year with, that number though is a lot stronger than it was at the beginning of the year. And when I heard this deal by Jim Rohn, he talked about it's in the Bible, right? The story about the sower of seeds, right? Has anybody heard that story where basically this guy is a sower? He is out there, sowing all his seeds, throwing them into, to make these crops, and he's a consistent sower, and he's good at it, right? He knows what he's doing. He's consistent. So those are the 2 things that he has. And what it says though is that with the different seeds that he's throwing out, different things are going to happen to it, right? So some of the seeds you throw out there, and he would say that it would get eaten by birds, right? So you like invite them to the opportunity. And they're like pumped up, fired up. Yeah, man, I'll be there. I'll be at the lunch and learn, or they do their application, and then all of a sudden crickets, right? You don't even hear from them anymore. And you say like, well, what happened? And basically Jim Rohn, you've got to hear the way he says it's so funny. He's like, they got eaten by the birds. And he's like, you got 2 choices that you can do at that point, right? You can go try and chase the bird, right? And what odds are you going to be able to get to go chase that bird and catch that bird? You're not going to do it, right? The other option, you just keep sowing seeds, right? You just keep going out there sowing seeds. And I thought that was extremely, interesting to me because that so happens in our business, right? We get these people fired up, and all of a sudden the birds get them and they're gone, right? And you can't get discouraged. You just got to keep sowing the seeds. And then the next thing happens, and he said that, the next seed that you throw out there, it starts to grow, but it's in shallow soil. right? So it's in shallow soil. So to start to grow and you start to see a little bit, but then the sun comes out and it dries up the roots because the roots aren't going down deep enough, right? And the person withers away and they're gone. And what can you do? And he's like, you can't do anything. You just keep sowing the seed, right? Because you don't know which seeds are going to happen or are going to take off. And so then the next one he would throw out and it lands on thorny ground, it says, right? And thorny ground is when like adversity happens, right? Like somebody comes in, they snatch them up, or like they hear the wrong thing, or somebody gets to them after they've joined you. And so it's like, well, what do you do? Can you change the soil? No, you don't change the soil. You got a lot of different types of soil out there, and you can't concern yourself with the type of soil. All you can do is continue to sow the seeds. And then finally, what will happen is that the seed will land on fertile ground, right? And when that seed lands on fertile ground, that plant is going to take off. And then some plants, he even goes even further to say, some plants will produce, 30% of the crops. Some plants will produce 60% of the crops. And some plants will produce 100% of the crops, right? Like, and what do you do with those that are at 30 to get them to 100? You don't do anything. The 30s, you let them do 30. You can try and push and motivate them, but you can't force a 30 to be 100 or vice versa, right? You can just kind of do what you're doing, keep doing your thing, inviting, but a 30 is going to be a 30, 60 is going to be a 60, and 100 is going to be 100. And how do you find more hundreds? Because that's what we're all concerned with. How do we find that person that's going to be the 100? He said you just got to have to keep sowing, and eventually you will get people that'll be your 100, and you won't know that person until it takes off. But you just got to keep sowing enough seeds that 100 comes around. And that 100 might come around in the first 20. It might take you 50. You might get the first person you talk to might be the 100, but you won't know it. You got to keep sowing the seeds. And so when I heard that story, I was like, man, that's fascinating. Like I know that those are all the different aspects of this business that we all think about daily. Like, how do we get people to produce more? You can't really. I mean, you can try and push, and we do these calls and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the 30s are going to be the 30s, 60s are going to be the 60s. And then the people that get, eaten by the birds are going to get eaten by you can't concern yourself with that, because if you go too far into the weeds, you stop sowing, the seed, and it takes you away from what you can control, which is your process, your efforts. And I just thought that was something I wanted to share with us on this call, because, in case you're in that same spot. So I don't know, Curtis, your thoughts on that?
Oh, dude, my thoughts are I just want to go watch that video. So Tim Power put it in the chat, guys. It's right there.
Perfect.
It's called sowing something by, let me see, click it.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I see it. Yeah, you gotta watch it. That thing is like powerful. It's so good. And it's so
sowing and reaping. Yeah. Yep. I'm excited to hear that. A couple more thoughts I had here, Kyle, before we wrap up. I saw one question in the chat I kind of wanted to go back to. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I think it's a pretty simple answer. I don't want to speak for you, but this is my opinion. So Rebecca asked, when you were talking about, Kyle, like, so you're saying it's more important to build relationships and not so much build your social media following. I don't think that's what he's saying necessarily. At least my opinion on it is, it's just you want to build it strategically and you want to invest the amount of time based on the return, right? So like, you do need to build your social following, you do need to build your brand, but your goal is, of course, to like leverage that to connect to more people and initiate more relationships. And if you can, kind of diversify your time with a mix of getting in front of people and hitting that wealth tracker kind of stuff, and at the same time building your social media presence, I think that's the powerful combination. But like, if you're just building it to build it and not do anything with it, or you don't have any plan to use it, then it is wasteful. But if you're building it because you plan to do something with it and you know what you want to do and you understand the power of, connecting with people and sharing what motivates them and all that good stuff, then it's super worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in the point where at one point I was building it so fast because I was just focused on a number. Like, I wanted to hit 10,000 Instagram followers, that I was literally just like connecting and not doing anything with anybody. And it's like, man, I do want to connect and I want to build my social media, but I got to do it at a pace where I can like grow and connect and like make a relationship and like, do, things with those connections aside from just getting the connection. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, all about a numbers game, I thought, to the extreme. So I think you just need to kind of, still connect and still build your social media, but just do it at a pace where you can do it and still build a relationship with each of those people you're connecting with.
Love it. I had one more question here, Kyle, just because of what's coming up for us here in the next little bit, guys. And again, if you haven't heard this, at least from my perspective, I'd be curious to hear what other people's growth numbers look like from this time last year. But we often think that like Q4 and Q1 is when most agents are going to make a change. And that's true. A lot of agents do make a change, but our team grew massively last Q2 and Q3. So I challenge you guys to think about this time of year right now as a harvest season, because I do believe it is. So we are getting together with a couple of leaders on our team to do just a small trial run of like building a business plan together. Each building our own individual business plan, but for our EXP agent attraction business. So we're doing that this week with a couple of folks. And we had this idea that as long as that goes well and it's simple and we can kind of like nail it down, we're going to start opening up for Team Disruptor a once a month business planning session for new agents to the team, so that the day you get to Team Disruptor, by the end of your first month, you should have an agent attraction business plan down on paper. So if you guys like that idea or you'd want to do it, will you drop a 1 in the chat and just like let us know you think that's a good idea? We'll announce it again probably after we do our small one this Tuesday and see if people want to do that. And one starting point for that, I'll leave you guys with some questions that you can think about to see if you already know this information or have this stuff down somewhere. But this was Brent Gove's that I like, Kyle, that I think is a good starting point. That's not the screen I wanted to share. Is it? Hold up. That one. There we go. Can you guys see this? 2019 Epic is what it should say on the page. Yeah. Okay. So this is Brent Gove's from his website, right? This is, I guess, in theory, what he gives everybody on his team or gets to his team when they join his revenue share team. So literally the first question he asks, and I'll ask you guys to challenge yourself to think about this. When do you want to be making at least $3,000 a month in rev share? When do you want to be making at least $3,000 a month in rev share? I guarantee you the agents who have had massive quick success coming over in agent attraction, they had a goal. It was like month 1, month 2, month 3, it might've been month 30, but they had a time when they wanted to be making $3,000 a month in rev share. And honestly, when I started, I didn't, but I have a time now of when I want to be making $10,000 a month in rev share. Like I know exactly what month that is and when I'm targeting. So I think that's a really good part of your business plan. The next one is, what would that do for you? That's a pretty big one. If you were making $3,000 a month, what would that do for you? Have you ever literally written down, if I was making $3,000 a month in rev share, it would pay my mortgage, my car payments, my spouse's car payments, and my son or daughter's school tuition? Like, just imagine what that would feel like if you've never stopped to think about that. How many agents will you sponsor in the next 90 days? This goes back to the idea that the way you start over is fast. Like if you're going to start over today, you want to build something fast. If you're going to hit the organization today, you're brand new, you want to build fast. Like you want to experience as much success and traction as you can to give you some momentum to build. Back to that Tom Trong video, guys. Again, you need to find a way to watch that video because he tells this story of how many people he exposed this thing to in the beginning. And I don't think he would say he slowed down, but I'd say he hasn't made a run like that again. But he's been much more strategic and he's had more strength in his offering because of that initial run, because of that 90-day run. So what would you do to hit that $3,000 a month? How many agents will you sponsor in the next 90 days? Have you really invested the time to build a list of prospects? Is it over 100? Like this is some real proven benchmarks by Brent Gove, right? He's saying if you haven't, or if you don't have it over 100, you haven't. Like if you don't have a list of over 100 prospects, you haven't really invested the time. If you're starting over today and you can't build a list of over 100 prospects, you haven't invested the time, and you have to, like right now. The next one is back to what we were talking about, Jay, earlier, the idea of going to the gym versus knowing when you're going to the gym. Do you have a set time carved out in your schedule that you will not waver from to make these outbound life-changing calls? When? And look what he asks. Look how simple Brent says it is. 1 day, 1 time window. That's it. 1 day, 1 time window. If you want to go more days and more time windows, you'll probably be more successful, but that's it. And then what has or is holding you back? And then what are your limiting beliefs? If you don't know how to figure out your limiting beliefs, you need to go Google and do some self-development stuff because you got to know what's holding you back so you can break through it. What will you read, do, or say to help you overcome this? This has been a topic of our masterminds quite a bit. Everybody's shared a lot of things. Brian Carruthers is a big topic right now that people are on. Who are you paying for professional coaching? again, that shows you what Brent Gove thinks of this and how important it is. And this was a topic for Kyle and I at lunch last Tuesday. Tom, again, man, I just got to thank you for being on calls like this, because we are, as you grow in this, you're continually, or you should be, seeking out more mentors that are doing what you want to be doing, right? And so I don't have an organization of 300, so I'm looking up to Tom Trong, who has built one, and I want to learn what he's telling me to do. And then the only way that's valuable is if I actually do what he's telling me to do. So who are you looking to for this coaching? Where are you getting it from? And if you're starting in this mastermind, good for you, but I challenge you to take it to another level. Go find somebody personally that would invest in you, pour into you. How many total agents would you like to have in your EXP organization? Dream a little bit. If you've never done this exercise, this is pretty powerful. And if you don't have a calculator to be able to tell you what this would be worth if you hit your dreams, you need to find somebody who has that calculator. There's a lot of us who have it. It's a really, really good exercise. Kyle and I were talking about, we used to do that weekly, right, Kyle? Maybe daily sometimes. Like, we would forecast our dreams out on spreadsheets. And the slowest time I've had from an attraction perspective was when I stopped doing that. When I stopped dreaming every day about what I could get to, what 2020 could look like, how many agents. And I'll tell you, I've never grown faster than when I was doing that every day, because you're daydreaming. You're picturing what would $20,000 a month feel like for your family, when you're doing this stuff. And then again, back to the power of events, Brent asks, do you have your room booked for EXP shareholders meeting this June in Orlando? He or she that has the ability to promote events wins big at EXP. You must learn to promote with a sense of urgency coming from contribution. So this just shows you how Brent Gove leads his team and how and why they're exploding as one of the fastest growing teams at EXP Realty. So challenge you guys to be ready to plan. And I saw a lot of ones in the chat, so we'll definitely open it up as soon as we get that session figured out. We'll try to do a monthly thing. We'll invite some of the leaders on, and you will not leave that meeting without a business plan. You will be asked to prepare for probably the first 5 or 10 minutes of the call. Make sure you can get this PDF. You better have a printer or get off the call and come back on the next one so you can print it out and write stuff down. So we will definitely do that.
Hey, Curtis, real quick. So first off, I would check it every time that my organization changed on enterprise. So sometimes it'd be multiple times a day but my dream. But no, as far as Tom, while we still got you on, I'm curious to ask you about reach. Are you using that just for your organization, or are you saying that you have a list of agents that you're prospecting right now that you are sending out reach text messages to as well?
Sure. I have a lot of groups within reach. So I have groups that basically I will contact, right? My top 100 that I'm going to contact that I haven't showed the program to. I have another group called Meaningful Conversations. I just want to, in other words, I'm not going to, what I've done recently, guys, is I'm not going to really sit down and show them the EXP Realty model until they're ready for it, really, until we've had enough of a meaningful conversation that they are in the open zone, open-minded zone. Then they have another list that says, reach out every month, reach out every quarter, reach out every year. I have another list where they say, don't call me anymore. Right. And then my standard response is, well, do you want me to just lose you completely from my cell phone, from my contacts, delete you from all of my Facebook groups because you follow me and you're getting content from me? Do you want me to delete you completely? They say, no, don't delete me completely. So you want me to stay in touch with you every 6 months or every year? Because I know, and that life changes. And when life changes and you have that window of opportunity, promise me that you have a conversation with me. So I have that group. Right.
Gotcha.
And so it's group. And then I also have a group for my floor one qualifiers. I have a group for my floor one who aren't selling any houses, who aren't qualifying. I have my tier 2, my tier 3. I have tier all the way down to tier 7. So, I rely on my leaders to duplicate, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes when there's an important meeting or something that I think they should attend, I personally reach out to them and just text them all the way down to level 7.
Love it. Well, hey, you've inspired me. I got to go. I have reach. I just haven't used it quite some time. So I'm going to have to go back, and I definitely don't have the group set up like that. I just had all of my everybody that was in my organization is one group, and that was my group.
No, but break it up, because you can't be texting everybody. That's just too much. Yeah. Right. And they know it's not personal to you. And when I let's say when I quote unquote reach out to people at my 7th level, I say, hey, you're on my 7th level. You understand that I make the most revenue share from you, right? And I want you to stay in the business, right? and they like that they like that I pay attention to them, right? And I say, if you need help, I'm going to help you down to my level 7, because was it Rob Flick or Gene Frederick who says, or even maybe it was Brent Gove that says, light the fire in the basement. They're going down to the level 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. Light that fire in the basement. And when you light that fire and you have 7 levels up that aren't capturing the rev share because they aren't wide enough, they automatically begin to build.
Yep. I love it. Awesome. Well, guys, great call. I know it's top of the hour. So Curtis, unless you got anything else you were going to share, I saw you just unmuted yourself.
Nope, that's all I got, man. I just wanted to make sure that document worked. I shared that Brent Gove document business plan. If you guys want to get a jump start on getting that together, start working on it yourself. That's all I got for this Tuesday. Right. Invite your teams. Let's fill this room, guys. And next Tuesday, there you go. World champ. Get out of here. There's the world champions.
Go out and be champions, boys and girls. No, that's for you guys. Go out and be champions today.
There we go. Okay, there we go. I love it. I thought he was bringing Northeastern flair too.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll see everybody on tonight's call, Tuesday Executive Overview. Let's make it a jam-packed call tonight, guys. Be inviting. And, again, I look forward to seeing all of you guys next week in Shareholders. Curtis, we need to talk. Are we doing this? Because we're going to be at Shareholders next week.
Next Tuesday morning.
Yeah, and it's an hour ahead there in Florida.
We'll talk. We'll figure it out. I think we will. Maybe. Depends on stuff. All right, we'll look at it. But, hey, guys, one more thing.
Yep.
Tuesday night. Come, please, because I'm trying out something new, and I'd like y'all's feedback. I'm going to try and channel my inner Gene Frederick tonight. We're going to kick off a little differently. We did something last week differently with the revenue share portion of the presentation. Really liked it, Kyle. And this week I'm going to try and do something a little bit different with the opener of the presentation. So I could really use y'all's support and feedback. So please come to the webinar for that at least.
I love it. All right, perfect. Well, we'll see you guys tonight, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.